Hi, I'm Jan Perullo from RiXtrema. Today I'm going to walk you through a custom stress test using our StressTestAI tool. The most recent events in Pakistan and India made me want to ask our system what the potential stress scenarios could be if there was a full-blown war between India and Pakistan. What we can see is, here's the question that I asked it. Describe this. It says describe the scenario, and I described it as an escalation of the war between India and Pakistan. It comes up with this graphic. That's all fine. But then it came down and said that the events would be a increase in the price of oil, which I found interesting, decrease in EM equities, a decrease in Indian equities, and a decrease in the rupee. So I wanted to show the explanations of the scenario because it's quite interesting. Now, there's a lot, left between India and Pakistan before they go to war, but I did think that this explanation was interesting. So the first thing that it comes up with is oil. India and Pakistan aren't necessarily known as big oil producers. So what was, why was there a disruption? Well, it turns out that an escalation between India and Pakistan could disrupt trade routes and increase geopolitical tension in the region, obviously, and this could lead to a supply shock affecting global oil prices. Well, I came to this map here, and hopefully you can see it well enough. Here's India, here's Pakistan, and right underneath the 17 is Saudi Arabia, and the Strait of Hormuz, I believe it's called. Right here is a major trade route, and it kind of comes right around India. So if there's nuclear weapons kind of flying around here, and that's one of the scenarios that I'll discuss in a second, this could be very affected by that. Even though that we're expecting more of a land war, it is a big horn where the boats go, where the ships go around. The other thing about this is we see EM volatility. So EM markets, as we know, are generally sensitive to geopolitical events. And the reason for EMs going down is that's kind of the first place that risk is taken off the table, sometimes the first place that risk is taken off the table when people want to go to more safety assets. So that's why EM would decline. And you can notice these are not major. What we do is we have a +1 or +2, +3 to indicate how many kind of standard deviations the event is going to, what we expect the event. So a 3 standard deviation event is a much bigger impact than a 2 standard deviation event, which is much bigger than a 1 standard deviation event. All right, so it depends on the volatilities, which we're showing here, but then it also depends on the number of standard deviations. So oil and emerging markets are smaller in impact than India, which would obviously go down, which is a bigger impact at a 2 standard deviation event, and the rupee, which is a 2 standard deviation event. One interesting thing that I also found was that, so if I apply this scenario to a portfolio, which I have up on the screen here, you can see that for this portfolio, which is a well-diversified portfolio, mostly U.S., we don't get a huge impact on this portfolio. It's not that big of an impact. It's a war that is somewhat in a region that would be somewhat contained between India and Pakistan and the land. And while we'd see a bit of a spike in oil prices, it's nothing that is critically dangerous for global oil supplies. So it would be a relatively minor increase in price and very limited emerging market exposure in this portfolio, and probably no Indian or rupee exposure. And those factors do not impact the rest of the factors that we'd be stressing that would affect a portfolio like this. So, for example, India going down, 25, 26%, something like that, would not necessarily impact the U.S. markets. They're pretty independent of each other. One thing that I did find that was interesting is from this little article here, it says this was predicted in 2019. That there would be a 2025 nuclear conflict between India and Pakistan. And according to this study, it would happen similar to what happened in 2019 and earlier when Indian and Pakistani troops lined up on their borders, but no major escalation occurred, at least in the 2019 episode. Now, what could happen is that, according to this, the Indian forces begin advancing into Pakistan. They probably have some conventional skirmish, and Pakistan generals fear that conventional retreat. And so what they do, Pakistan in this scenario would allegedly use 10 tactical nuclear weapons within its own borders against Indian, tanks and conventional armaments. So it would use 5 nuclear weapons or 10 nuclear weapons within its own border to deter and repel the Indian forces. And on day 2, Pakistan again says that they would launch. This is the scenario. Says that they would launch 15 more tactical nukes into India. It's kind of vague on whether or not that would be the Pakistani nukes would be in their own territory or in India. And then in response, says India uses 20 strategical nukes targeting Pakistani military installations, and then it just keeps on escalating from there. 30. The interesting thing that it says that India ultimately responds with 70 nuclear outbursts, and Pakistan uses its entire arsenal of 120 nuclear weapons targeting Indian cities. Now this would be civilians and things. And India still has 700 weapons in reserve to deter China. So anyways, the death toll is crazy in this scenario. If it went to that, I believe that we'd have a much more catastrophic scenario than what we're seeing here. That is really uncharted waters, but this is a kind of a more traditional conflict between India and Pakistan like we've seen in the past. So I hope that's helpful. Thanks for watching.